What's up, guys? It's DK. Welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel. Why are you even here, though? Didn't you know Ginger Man bad?
You know what? I really don't appreciate it, quite frankly, guys. I'm just going to put my foot down now. The way people are acting like I'm just changing my haircut and image, trying to appeal to the Zoomers and sort of get to like Gen Z and seem cool and down with the kids. Because that ain't me. I'm not having a midlife crisis. I'm just a totally normal guy. You know what? I've had many different haircuts and styles back in the past. And I just kind of roll with how I feel. You know, I don't dress for other people, guys, you chauvinists. I dress the way it makes me feel good. The way that I would dress the same way if no one was watching, if I was at home by myself. Honest. Spoiler, I actually think right now, watch out for this, as the tournament goes on, little pro tip, people are going to bail on FaZe, and they're going to think, oh, they can't do it. Even though this is exactly what they used to do when they won tournaments at the beginning of last year. They would lose early in the groups to a contender, then they would come back and win. So get ready for those quarters and semis where I think you're going to get a decent price on them, and they're one of the all-time great teams, might win the Grand Slam. So let's get into it, eh? Maybe they go Super Saiyan. Don't even know why I did that. Just would be cool if they went Super Saiyan. But you get the premise. Anyway, so Cloud9 has a ticking clock. Now, that's not some sort of brag about the fact that they're able to tell the time, but it's the fact that, think about this, Cloud9 replaced interz coming into this year with Buster, the former Virtus.pro, a Vanguard player, and then finished last place in their first big tournament. I am kind of eats it. Last place. They lost to IHC Esports from Mongolia. Now, that's cool for IHC. There's no universe that should be happening if you're Cloud9, though. So they barely, remember, even got into Katowice. They almost lost to ENTz, if you don't know, in a best of three in the actual playing thing. True, I think they would have won like a low bracket match or whatever if they played someone. Looks like ENTz played Complexity. I think they would have beaten them. So I think there's big pressure on this Cloud9 lineup. They are being paid legit salaries as far as I've heard. They were brought in to be champions, to have a gamble, to go to the top, to win majors. And at the moment, they haven't got it done. So the move was, interz out, Buster in. So let's do the classic one, shall we? I think it's a controversial move. I called this on all my shows, Hot Take Point Made, Snake and Banter. I think only noobs who don't have an eye for the game think interz sucked. Now, he had bad stats and he had bad roles in the team, but generally I thought he did pretty well. So crucially, in my opinion, the only true bad stats relative to role and style of play were at the majors. Now, sadly, there's been 3 majors and he hasn't been great at them. That will be a killer, sure, but Cloud9 has plenty of problems outside of majors too. They don't win tournaments aside from that one, which is the most contentious, fluky sort of win in a long, long while, right after another major. So in my opinion, in all of the scenarios than the major, he was a very serviceable player and he played hard spots and roles that crucially create space and give resources to other people. There's actually a great video that'll explain it to you from the online period when Paladin, who you might have seen on my show, Rescope, did a video breaking down what this guy does. Essentially, he's in the mold of a Perfecto. He's not as good a fragger as Perfecto, or he's Zipnix, also not as good at Zipnix's prime as being a fragger. But that's the sort of thing he's doing. Now, the problem with that is, I don't, as a result, see him as even vaguely the first person. He'd be like the third person I'd remove from this team, and I'd try a lot before I did. So, now, true, I've heard some stories, maybe in his real life, some things are going on. I'd give some like this time. I mean, they've been a soldier. They've carried the load for you. They've done a lot to help this team. Instead, they bring in Buster. Now, that's a great move. 2 or 3 years ago. Sorry, what? Maybe when Navi was thinking of it last year, like right around the time where he'd only been out of the game for a few months, that might have been okay too. But Buster just used to be good. And the key word is used to. Like, I thought this guy was the best player in the Vanguard in 2019. And even online, before they got Yakindar, he seemed like he was the best player overall. I thought Jane was too much of a beta back then. Kickit was trying to do like entry shenanigans. Sanji sucked. And obviously Adrian wasn't good. And then you saw what happened with that lineup. I do think at the end of Virtus.pro, he was pretty bad. I think he was one of the reasons, actually, even when they brought in Flip, they had their issues. Like, they should have been slightly better than that. They could have won that major or gone deep, in my opinion, in a fluke session, like outsiders did at this major. And he hasn't played in months and months and months. So the upside is going off some memory of before, or this notion that he's going to fit the roles, because at the end he played sort of whack roles. Yeah, he wasn't that good at it though, was he? Like, he doesn't seem like a good role fit for what interz did. I prefer him as a fragger and part of the entry pack, not doing what interz does. not being like a hard support. So I think the worst thing about this move is he didn't even get an upgrade necessarily, and you gambled the chemistry of the team. Because to me, interz was a fundamental part of the framework of what made C9 work. And then it was individual performances or bad calling would let the team down. The rest of it looked good. The chemistry always looked good, in my opinion, on this team. Now, I think right now, Cloud9 has what's called the G2 and Vitality problem from last year. So when G2 brought in Huxley, the reason the pressure was insane from match one is because the fans have already waited the whole year and they haven't won a championship. And they're like, look, I don't care that Huxley's just starting. He has to win now because I've been waiting all these months for Lexi B. Same thing with Vitality. Before they got Spinks, he comes in, and luckily they did win the first tournament, but the pressure was insane because everyone's been waiting with that super team combo of Astralis and Vitality. But that was supposed to already be winning. And obviously it hadn't. It only made one final, that blast final. And so people expect a lot. They've waited long enough and they know you spent money, you've put big name lineups together. So I think the fans have waited so long for this team to be good when they were Gambit, and now especially when they're Cloud9, they don't want to wait any longer. And I Am Dallas isn't enough. They demand success now, and I think especially in the case of Cloud9, because NA fans, what's making them want to support and gravitate towards this team instead of a Team Liquid is going to be if this team's a winner. If the team wins, Americans love winners, whether they're imports or not. If they win, then people will support them because they're Cloud9. They will support them for the NA memes. They will support them to be able to trash talk EU. So if they do well, it can be enormous payoff, but they will be heavily scrutinized and punished. Hence why people, in my opinion, like Maui, also do go quite hard at them. So I think there is enormous pressure, not on interz, he's gone anywhere. I think the pressure's actually on Nafany and HObbit. And now it certainly is because they're the ones in the crossfire. They're the replaceable players. Nobody in the right mind would replace Shiro Exile. You make that work, and they're exceptional players. Even with all the failures, they were still like ironclad top 5, top 6 players in the world last year. Look at the problems that team had. Shiro used to have some issues, but I think generally doesn't. He's a really, really exceptional player now. It's just his problem is he doesn't always take too much initiative. He won't hard one take over the game, but he's definitely insane at his role. One of the absolute, like he is a top 5 player in the world. Exile is bananas for being a rifle player, and occasionally doesn't go ballistic and has the odd downturn game. And I'll tell you what, the reason he gets so much abuse is because when he's on, he just wins the game against anyone. But when he goes missing, they almost always seem to lose those games, and it's very much felt. Like, I get the sense, actually, he is the true X factor of whether they win a game or not, is Exile. I'd rather him go off and Shiro have an average game than Shiro go off and Exile have an average game. Now, true, that is due to the nature of their roles, styles of play, and guns that they use. But even so, Exile really is like the one who makes them the champion, if it can happen. That's Thor, if the others do their job. I think Nafany generally has actually sort of called like shit during the Cloud9 period. I give him a lot more credit in the Gambit one because I think he was just growing into his role. He's had loads of LAN experience now relative to what I expect with these players. 2 top 5, 6 players in the world. Mate, you're supposed to win now if you're doing your job. And by the way that major ended, that ancient game, that T-side, was an absolute joke. I thought that was actually disgraceful. That should really be a black mark on his name as an IGL, and I want to see something big to make up for that at some point in time. I think interz just played bad at majors. Aside from that, he was a good player. But now, of all the people they chose to cut off those problems, they chose interz. Now, I'm just going to say this quickly. I think this is the classic way of thinking where most pros are young and think skill is the most important thing, not game and how you play. And as a result, he was considered the worst or least skilled player, and he actually was. I think he was less skilled than Nafany, actually. So they cut him. They go, let's get a more skilled player in. Now, that is like, in soccer, cutting a defender to add another attacking midfielder and saying, right, but you're going to play a defender. You're going to be a right back or a sweeper. It would be inappropriate. It wouldn't make sense, would it? Or the NFL analogy would be, like, you cut one of the, let me think, like in this case, you'd cut like a fucking offensive lineman who keeps people off your quarterback and just put like a running back in his spot or something. Like, it wouldn't really work. It's a different body type. It's a different game. The running back would get injured or have his game ruined. He wouldn't be able to stop people from getting the quarterback. There's giant guys. Aaron Donald, that's going to throw him out the way. Khalil Mack. It wouldn't work, would it? So in my opinion, not only was it a scenario where it was stupid, because you rarely ever get a JKS angle like G2 where you can actually upgrade someone who seems to do all the roles but will be more skills and will be a mega skill upgrade. That's a very rare move you can do. It's the reason why everyone was shocked G2 wasn't having more success with the players they had. I think chemistry in this team mattered a lot on their T-side because Nafany's calling could be dodgy. And if Exile goes missing, Shiro ain't that super aggro player. He's going to let the game come to him. So I think Nafany is very much under pressure. So you'll notice in interviews, all that stuff from the 2021 period where he was in denial still, he's lost all that slick talk, guys. He's lost all that confidence. Now he himself seems to just admit he's lost. And quite frankly, when I see him in the big LAN match meta, He does look lost. He does look like his calling goes, or he has a weird idea of what he wants to do. What's weird is, actually, for an IGL, one thing he doesn't really get credit for, he can frag. He has absolutely top frags. But the problem is, when he does it, it looks almost like it's at the cost of the rest of the team structure. Like he forces it around himself a little bit, or makes people wait for him to... I don't know if I feel that much. Like, I prefer people to frag as the IGL when they've got superstar players, especially an AWP and a Rifler. Within the system, set them up, and then you fill in the holes. So I do sometimes wonder if there's a bit of ego play in that sense. Maybe in scrims he just does super well when he plays like that. By the way, the player I really think it's just not convenient because you all love the narrative that he's a legend. I love this guy. It's the idea that HObbit might be a problem. I think HObbit's game generally has been pretty off ever since Antwerp and that whole thing of like, did he match fix? And as a result, I think actually he's been very up and down. By the way, he's got a real life family and situation going on. I don't know where this guy's head at. I don't know what the situation is. I don't know how any of these people were affected, by the way, by some of the real world circumstances. But all I know is he wasn't the mega player he was when they first went to LAN and early in 2022. Remember, he was once the sleeper best. Funny, you just like bust it in VP, where now he's probably a clear third, and he used to be closer to the Axel Shiro end. Now he's way closer to the interz, now Buster, and nafany end, which ain't a great look. So I think they also have the heroic problem, which is once you've had good success online, you brought the core to LAN, you keep playing, people expect you to start consistently winning, not just being like a good team that always drops out in the quarters, always manages to get randomly upset every now and then, always just loses the close game. People expect them now to be put in top 4 finishes every time, to be in the finals a bunch and to win some trophies. Because what are they waiting for? These players have developed now. These players are old enough now. Please have got their confidence. They've got their game together. You've got your superstars. Now's the time. If you do your job, you start winning. Because people think, but it was solved by IM Dallas now. That was, when you start putting the context into that event, it just gets less and less and less and less sexy as a win. So not really. And then you add in that major failure. They were supposed to easily beat Mouse. And quite frankly, I think firepower-wise, if they were on their game, they beat outsiders, which means in the final they play heroic. Who knows who wins that game? Who knows? Flip a coin. They might have been major winners. I'm not exaggerating. So quite frankly, I think they have to get a win soon, or I think one of those two gets fired, replaced, benched, nafany or HObbit. Now, who do you get if it's an IGL? Because remember, there's a lot of like talent, CIS talent. I don't know if they can sign Russians. In terms of riflers, there's loads. Imagine getting some of those guys. But if you want an IGL, there's not many, right? There's really 2 options available. There's either Jerry from Fours. I would take him. I've always thought he did a good job with his players. And he's done a good job with young riflers. Or the gamble is Boomich, right? What we have to ask is, does Boomich actually IGL? I mean, he can obviously frag in a little bit. Would he be good, though? I don't know on that one. I would personally go with the Jerry one, but there's a weird thing where it seems like he'll never leave that team. I don't know the Boomich one, because there has been some mad, embarrassing stuff released about him. And obviously, people are always going to bring that up, and there's going to be the whole thing that he is Russian. And yes, the other players are Russian in the team, but you notice they recruited a Kazakhstani player. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's a reason why you're not seeing Na'Vi and Cloud9 and these other team recruiting Russian players currently, unfortunately. So I do think that maybe the options are limited. I work hard to make sure I get mine, but no one can do it all on their own. And that's why everyone needs a support group. And so I have my Patreon community. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Maybe you want to ask a question in one of these monthly AMAs. Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming guests are. Or maybe you want to take part in one of those long discussions where you can help set the table of the topics and join in with other like-minded people. Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrilluminati today via the Patreon link below, as the following people who I very much appreciate did: Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Ahmed Hadjou, Kyle, Bot Pounder 420, Torin, Animosity, Tobias Bernasconi, Jensen Goh, Tosh, and always, you know it, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion.